Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Innovate HPE's MOOC Season 2. We hope you're enjoying this season, which is built around the book Hacking Leadership by authors Joe Stanfilippo and Tony Sinanis. We had Joe on first episode, and it was a great night. Jimmy Cassis also joined him, and we will be having Tony Sinanis recording an episode with us the first weekend in May, and that's going to be great as well. This year, we're building this, as I said, around our 2018 keynote speaker, Joe Sanfilippo, who will be joining us in Seven Springs in November. And our approach to leadership, as I've mentioned in all the episodes, in case you're viewing for the first time tonight, our approach to leadership is kind of leadership. If you're a superintendent, you lead principals. If you're a principal, you lead teachers. If you're a teacher, you lead students, and students even lead each other. So leadership is really kind of a universal term, and that's kind of the approach we're taking. We are building some of this stuff around some of the things in the book. Tonight, we're going to look at flattening the walls of your school and broadcasting student voices. And we were thinking about this episode. There was somebody who actually I met on Twitter. This is the beauty of social media. We knew each other only on Twitter for a long time, and then I ran into him at a conference. And I was actually going to ask him before I ran into him. I'm not sure if he believes me or not, but we saw him, and my friend Jessica, who is usually co-hosting with us, approached him that night and asked him if he would be on, and thankfully he's joining us tonight. And that's Bryan Brutto, and we'll give him a chance to introduce himself. Jessica couldn't be with us tonight hosting. She's driving back from the eastern side of the state to her home in Pittsburgh, and but co-hosting with me tonight, one of the most talented young administrators that I know, and an amazing person on top of it all, assistant principal of Cumberland Valley High School, Bryan Robinson, is co-hosting tonight. So
good evening, everyone.
So we're going to turn it over to Bryan Brutto to introduce himself tonight and tell us a little bit about how you ended up in the position that you ended up, your background in education, and then we'll start firing away.
Sure. Well, first off, I want to say thanks for having me on. I think that these opportunities are amazing, what you guys are doing to be able to connect administrators and teachers around this book study. And we talked a little bit before about how I love the message of being able to say leadership is not just something from the top down. School admin lead teachers in their school communities, and the themes that you're covering throughout this webinar series and this MOOC series, we were talking about just changing nouns changes the narrative. So if you see school and you say classroom, those themes of what makes good leaders can transcend, whether it's a large district to a school building to a classroom to the individual interactions that we're having. So appreciate the opportunity just to be part of the larger conversation tonight. My name's, again, Bryan Brutto. I am, my title, and we talked a little bit about this, is Director of Administration at Avon Grove Charter School. We're a small charter school in Southern Chester County. By small, I say that relative to some of the districts that we're surrounded by. So we have 1,700 students, K through 12. We have students coming from 7 major school districts in Chester County. And my role is kind of a jack of all trades. And I think that's why it might be a little bit of a weird title. So I get to do everything from central office planning and strategic planning to helping to build the academic calendar, to budgeting, to teacher observations, to mystery reader in the 3rd grade classroom. So I when I say that kind of fills everything, it really does fill everything. I am a Shippensburg graduate. So I did my undergraduate in Shippensburg University, went there on a track scholarship. And knew I wanted to be a teacher. So whenever you ask like the elementary kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Everyone's like, I want to be a police officer or a fireman, something really, really heroic like that. I had a really awesome 2nd grade teacher. Her name was Miss Crowers. And since 2nd grade, I've always answered that question that I wanted to be a teacher. So it's kind of been ingrained with me throughout, all of my, normal schooling. I knew that Shippensburg had an elementary school on campus. I ran track and got offered a scholarship there, and it kind of was like the best of both worlds. I did a short stint of teaching in Gettysburg at Gettysburg Middle School. I taught alternative education and 7th grade civics and Pennsylvania history. And then my girlfriend at the time, who is now my beautiful wife, said, I'm going to move to Pittsburgh and I want to go to graduate school. So I said, that sounds like a great idea. I'll come along. So I ended up actually leaving that position into parts unknown. We moved out to Pittsburgh and we lived there for about 6 years. I ended up actually teaching for Agora Cyber Charter School. At that time, it was around like 2007, 2008, and you started to see this idea of like hybrid learning and blended learning and online learning crop up. So I saw an opportunity to teach online and thought, like, this is kind of how you start to see schools moving towards into some type of blended learning. This would be a really great opportunity. So I taught there for 4.5, 5 years, and then had really my career so far has been being set up in really good situations at the right time. So I've kind of moved up through Agora and then into K-12 Incorporated. So I worked for K-12 and did some curriculum mapping and planning for their online courses. I helped manage Agora from the peripheral and did some like business development within K-12 on writing their online courses. And then again, a kind of a serendipitous event. I was interviewing somebody for a position and I wanted to try to leave that online setting. I missed the kids. I kind of felt like something was missing from not really why I got into education to kind of work in an office all of the time. So I was interviewing someone for a position and I knew we were going to offer her the job. And I looked at her resume and it said that she was an administrator at Avon Grove Charter School. And I was like, oh, well, this could work out for the both of us. So then I ended up actually switching jobs and staying close for that first year as like a support system. So then I've been at Avon Grove Charter for the last 4 years, was the 7 through 12 principal, then took on 3rd through 12th grade. And now I manage a state road campus that has 3rd through 12th grade on it, along with some of the principals. I manage our IT department and supervise our IT director. I work with our curriculum and instruction director. So, it's a close-knit team of everybody kind of working towards the same mission, but have bounced around. I know Jessica is a Pittsburgh native. Yesterday was a tough hockey game of who to root for. It's tough because my wife and I sit on the couch and like I'm trying to be a Flyers fan because we've moved back to the Philadelphia area, and she's still diehard Pittsburgh Penguins and Pittsburgh Steelers. So there's a little bit of a divide in our house, and then what we do with our son.
Well, thanks, Bryan, for that introduction. It sounds like you've touched on so many different types of educational systems here in Pennsylvania. So you've probably had to deal with people making assumptions about online learning, about charter schools. And the authors talk about the fact that in the absence of knowledge, people make up their own truths. So can you talk about either a specific time or in general, how that happened to you, maybe through some of your experiences in cyber charter schools, and what you learned from that experience?
Sure. I mean, I can give you an example from last week, and even tie it back to social media and kind of what the theme of tonight was. So last week during our ELA PSSAs, we had our fire alarm go off right in the middle of testing. It's like the one thing that you don't want to have happen during the middle of state standardized testing happens. So it was a false alarm, got all the kids out. Fire department came, fire marshal came and everything. And I'm pretty good at being really responsive to our families and our community when things like that happen. But I had left my phone in the building because it wasn't a planned drill and was kind of running around to make sure that all of the kids were safe. And, that quickly, social media burst because the kids are on their phones outside saying that, and what has happened recently, an alarm system going off in a school is a fearful thing, both for teachers, for kids, for administrators, and for parents. And the narrative that got out because of social media stretched all the way across Chester County, because we have kids coming from all different sending districts, to the point where, there was a misfire of a gun that went off, that there was an actual fire, that there was an intruder, that the police were on site with dogs, like the craziest things going on when it was a bad smoke head that tripped the fire alarm. And when we were talking about this and looking at the notes, I mean, that idea that when we're not able to control the narrative that's happening in our schools, that other people will hijack that message. I mean, as a parent, so often, and when I was thinking about it, I mean, that was one that we had to deal with last week, and it was because we weren't on top of things in our communication efforts. But at the same time, it was a time where, you know, that opportunity to be out in front of messaging eluded us, and we ended up having to play catch up a little bit, and the community ended up hijacking, you know, what our school message was that week and where our time was spent that week, just because we didn't have that opportunity to be out in front of it.
Yeah, that really can happen, and that's a great example that you just gave, because that is the nightmare scenario for testing. So one of the things when I've been kind of talking and preaching the gospel of social media for many years now, because I just believe in what it can do, and obviously we've connected, and there's so many great things that we know we find online. One of the pushbacks that I get from staff when I present on it and talk about it is they're apprehensive at being transparent. What if somebody doesn't like something I say? What if the school district sees something that I say? What if? And they're kind of apprehensive at being transparent. What are you doing, or how do you help your staff members that are apprehensive in being that transparent, of telling their story of their classroom or the school or whatever it is that they need to tell? How do you help them through that apprehension?
We do a lot of modeling. You know, I mean, if everyone's going to make mistakes. So I always try to share with staff, listen, people make mistakes and no one's infallible. So if you feel like you want to utilize these platforms to share the positive things that are happening in your classroom, for every 100 things that you share, you might make one mistake, and that's going to happen because we're all human. But look at those other 99 things that you've crafted a positive message, whether it's for the school or for your classroom, or if you're you know, highlighting the amazing things that the kids are doing. It's modeling and being transparent ourselves. I may put something out there and share something where my grammar isn't correct. And those are the best ones, when your grammar isn't correct, right? And everybody comes out and they're the first ones to say the your is your, and you're like, yep, you got me. And it is what it is. And it's a platform these platforms are platforms to share ideas. And if you're going to let that fear paralyze you, I think that it's an opportunity to try to then go slow. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but then really focus on the positive, because the message is out there, and the ability to connect and share the positive messages always outweigh, you know, the small mistakes that you might make, or the things you might not say. And it's not, as an educator, I'm not using it to try to get likes and to get comments and, you know, to measure my self-worth by that. I'm using it as a platform to share a positive message and try to impact others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the recommendation I always give to the teachers too is don't necessarily worry about what you're going to say for a while. Just read what others say and follow the people that you respect. Or if you're not sure who you respect, find one or two people you respect and find out who they follow. And oftentimes that kind of leads you on the path. That's actually how I discovered George Couros, is finding someone that I respect, followed him, and then of course it's been downhill or uphill ever since. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and you don't even really need to do to start off, and I'm still do this a lot. You don't need necessarily to share your own ideas. Sometimes it's just retweeting or resharing or putting out there somebody else's message that aligns with your own mission and your vision and what you think about education and what you want to do for kids, and just shaping your own social media profile around those positive messages helps you along the way. Like I love Dan Steele. Like if everybody, you know, read Danny Steele's tweets and retweeted one of them, the world would be a better place because of what he has to say.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan, you mentioned using Twitter. Are there any other social media platforms or any other ways that you try to connect your school to the greater community?
Sure. So we did an exercise just like Joe shared in the book of kind of trying to find your audiences. So just like he had said, we found that our parents are on Facebook. A lot of our students and our alumni are on Twitter, and then kind of everybody's on Instagram now. It's kind of becoming like that new in between where even parents have started to get on that because they find the ability to archive their photos is really nice. So those are the three that we utilize, but we leverage them in different ways. So we're really heavy into Facebook when it's trying to craft a community message, because we found that, again, most of our parents are on there, and most of our major stakeholders, whether it's community members or business owners in the area, leverage Facebook as a kind of a go-to. We've been trying to get teachers and our educators more on Twitter, because we've been finding that, like Todd and I kind of got into contact with one another, you're seeing this rush of educators to Twitter now as being the one-stop shop sort of for expanding their professional learning network and being able to get ideas. Whether it's being able to cultivate and find those people to follow, or whether it's being able to follow a hashtag that you're really interested in. The power of Twitter for educators has been pretty profound. Really over the last like 5 years. Before that, it was still, and Todd and I talked about this last week, it was still that kind of medium where it was, I'm in the kitchen making my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'm going to share with the world what I'm doing at this particular moment in 140 characters. But you're seeing it more as a way to connect, and we're really trying to get teachers to see the value in that, and not be hesitant, and almost remove that label of social media. And then we've got into Instagram for a lot of archiving photos and being able to connect multiple social media platforms. But again, we found that for our school community, and it's really going to be different dependent upon your geographical area and what your parents and your community members and stakeholders are into. Most of what the demand that we see from our school community has been participation through Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Bryan, as I was doing some research to get ready for tonight, I came upon an article. Actually, your first graduation that you were in charge of.
Where did you dig that up from?
Well, if you type in Bryan Brutto, Avon Grove Charter School, I think it's one of the third hits. But
so you Googled me.
I did. But
it's anyway, awkward.
Yeah,
really great quote. It's actually a great Google find. The article talked about, in your speech, you're quoted as saying, "Community service prepares you to make a profound impact on the world." And then you have another quote, and you end it with, "Write your own manual." And I just, that was huge. In fact, I'm going to tweet that out tomorrow, courtesy of you. How are you deliberately creating opportunity for students to have an impact on their community? Because I think that's so huge in today's education. It's not just about content. It's not just about solving for X or understanding chemical formulas or whatever else you want to come up with related to content. It's such about an impact in community. So how are you creating opportunities for your students and staff to do that?
So the school was originally founded, it was one of the school's founding principles was this concept of kind of service above oneself. And it's really stayed true to that. So we actually have a service learning and community service hours requirement for graduation. So for our seniors to be able to walk, they have to complete so many hours of community service, or else they're not eligible to walk in graduation. I like and dislike that. I feel like I'm forcing community service on the kids. But at the same time, we as a school and really as a community, and what I believe is as sort of a larger need for the world, is not for kids just to leave K-12 schooling with being able to understand those chemical formulas or understand that content, but have more of a well-rounded sense of self, and how they fit in their community and how they can help others. So we try to connect our kids with as many service learning opportunities in our community as we can. And what's unique about us is we pull kids from all over Chester County. So when we're talking, when a lot of school districts are looking at serving their community, it's it's can be a much more condensed geographic area, and they oftentimes the district schools, which is an awesome thing for district schools. If they're not leveraging their space for this, they can be a great offshoot of their community, as sort of being a staple within that area, because we pull kids from as far as Downingtown all the way to almost the southwestern part of Oxford up to Solanco. When we talk about community, we're talking about a much broader geographic area. So we have kids who might live in Coatesville that are doing service projects in Oxford, and we have kids who it's not just to the blocks of the streets that they might live on, or the places they may go on the weekend. It's even looking at how do we serve our county, how do we serve our state, how are you doing something to serve others beyond just the normal interactions that you might have on a daily basis. And we try to ingrain that into everything we do, even at the school level. So one of the programs that we started, we saw that kids were coming from all these different communities, and we were trying to build a stronger sense of identity for our school. And we have 3rd graders and 12th graders riding the same bus. And that can be really a really anxious thing for parents when you're sticking a 3rd grader on a bus with a 12th grader. So we started a big brother, big sister mentoring program within our school, called the Wolfpack Mentoring Club. So we have high schoolers that, are paired with elementary school kids, and really any district can do this. And this has been one of the most profound things that we've seen have the biggest impact on our kids that were leaving 12th grade, that they come back and talk about, was the connections and the opportunity to serve within our school community, those younger kids, and build that sense of community. But really, I do think that we have too many kids leaving our K through 12 institutions without a larger sense of how they fit in the world. I actually have a saying, and it's in my kitchen, and I look at it a lot. It says, your greatest gift to the world may not be something you do, but someone you raise. And that's up there for my wife and I to remind ourselves about how we're raising our son. But when I look at it, I think, I have 1,700 kids that walk through my building, and every teacher has, X amount of kids in their classroom, and they all have an impact. We're all raising those kids. Sometimes the students in our school are spending more time with us than they are with their parents. And often you sometimes see teachers being, in loco parentis, means, in place of the parents. And we take that really seriously at our school, and want to ingrain into our kids those key concepts that are going to make them successful after high school.
Well, I'm sure it's a lot of work, Bryan, and there's probably pushback. But it seems like really it's fantastic for your students to have those experiences at the end, especially when you hear them coming back. What are some ways that you found the students who are participating in that community service are able to get their story out? And do you think that helps to take away the negative pushback you have about your requirements?
We don't necessarily have a big negative pushback on the requirements. I guess I was kind of saying where I would love to see the students take more ownership over it, rather than be like, oh, I have to do these hours, and them not kind of get that till later on in life, that they're seeing the value in it. But we have, if you look on our social media page right now, we just shared stories of a group of kids partnering with K9 Partners for Life. That's how they're doing some of their service learning projects. They challenged Carson Wentz to a challenge to raise money for K9 Partners for Life, which I believe he partners with as well. So we really utilize our social media platforms to share everything that's going on, and those kids are highlighted there. And then they're turning around and sharing with their friends, like, look, I'm on the school's page. My work's being done. The local newspaper picks a lot of these things up as well. And it kind of is a trickle effect. It starts with us and in our school and in our community. And as we share, it's kind of shaping the conversations that are happening in our hallways and in our classrooms, and in our local newspapers. So we're kind of like the beginning for some of the shaping of those stories. And it goes back to when I said, and I'll loop back to that, write your own manual. It goes back to, I want the kids to be able to see the value in that service learning opportunity, and make it their own, that it's an intrinsic thing and not something that's being forced upon them. And that when they're going out in the world, they're really going to have to make their own way and identify those things that they're passionate about and that they feel they're going to be able to make a difference in. And focus on that and make that who they are, and don't let other people, jade that view of the impact that they want to have. Hey, Bryan, did you lose Todd's audio?
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'm the only one allowed to mute my mic, Todd. Come on.
No, I actually muted it because there's guinea pigs in this office, and one of them started squeaking because one of the kids ran upstairs. So I was like, nobody wants to hear the guinea pig squeak in the background. Now you heard about it.
Now I do.
There you go. So anyway, I want to just be respectful of everyone's time, so we're going to jump ahead a little bit. The opening line of the chapter on broadcasting student voices is schools are reactive, and that really kind of struck me, because in many respects it's true. We're reactive to the message that happens, kind of like your fire drill thing. That was a real story that kind of illustrated that. And I love, like, again, doing some more research on Avon Grove. I just love how you guys use it. It felt like there was about 20 videos from Friday, 420, and just like looking at all of the things going on at the different classes and different buildings, I guess, because I know you manage multiple buildings. Did you bring that to Avon Grove? And if so, like, what was the process for getting all of the teachers to post? Like, how do you have that many posts, and how did you bring that, or was that already a culture that was established when you got there and you just kind of kept it going?
So the Facebook Friday. So every Friday, basically, we go and we find something that we want to share. Well, originally it was one thing, and then it kind of started to snowball. And then you see, like last Friday, there were multiple things going on that wanted to be shared. But that was actually an initiative of our head of school. Again, wanting to leverage social media to control our message of the great things that are happening in our schools, and not make it so that what's happening is only this secret knowledge that the people who are in the day-to-day know what's going on, but to be able to say, let's open our doors and share what's going on in the normal operations of the day. So Facebook Live started, where we try to find at least one thing that we highlight every Friday, and we kind of tease it out all week. So we'll post on our social media, and we'll put it on our closed network TVs. Check out our Facebook Live Friday for this event. You might be speaking with this teacher or this administrator, or be talking about this initiative. And then we go live, and it's all walking through the hallways, or being in a classroom, or highlighting something that's happening at the school. And we've had a great response from our teachers and our staff, as well as our parents. Our parents are constantly commenting on it, and love the idea of being able to be brought into the normal school operations of the day, and it not be sort of, like you said, reactive communication that's happening, but something that's proactive and saying, come and look what's going on in your kids' schools. We want to share this. It started with just the administrators, kind of doing PSA announcements. And then it kind of evolved into the teachers really taking it and saying, well, I want to be on it. I'm doing this cool thing in my class. Come and highlight me for Facebook Friday, or I have this really great project going on. I want to share how awesome my kids did. Come and highlight me. So then it kind of snowballed into, we'll do this a couple times a week now, depending upon how many requests we get for sharing. And you've really started to see a culture shift of, a lot of times teachers look at these four walls are where things happen. And it's hard to get them to share out what happens in those four walls because, it's unnatural sometimes for teachers to do that. And we've started to see this shift to, I'm doing something awesome. My kids are doing something awesome. I want the world to see this. And we've been getting flooded with requests. So it's been a really great way to start to build culture at our school while also leveraging it as a communication tool.
That sounds awesome, Bryan. Now you talked about shifting the culture. Do you reach out to the teachers to get feedback on culture? Is it just how you feel walking through the hallways, or watching the Facebook Live segments, or are there ways that you collect feedback to see how these initiatives are progressing?
Sure. So we send out the surveys, right? So you always send out like that culture and school climate survey, and you get the people who are honest, and you get the people who are telling you what you want to hear. And the data is somewhat skewed either way. I measure school culture. You know how I measure school culture? And the teachers are starting to catch on to this. I try to say good morning to as many people as I can on Monday morning. And then if I get a real positive, like, yeah, I'm good, how are you, and everything, or if I get it's Monday, right? It's Monday. I feel bad because I'm like, we're not doing something right. And that teacher is going to have a really long week if that's how they're feeling first thing Monday morning. So I really have a pulse of the school based on asking people good morning and how's it going on Monday morning. But a lot of this communication and sharing I don't know if I can necessarily say one is like how the way that we're seeing this increased in participation and wanting to break down the classroom walls and communicate out and share is shifting that type of culture element. But you are definitely seeing more teachers be open and transparent and increasing their communication with their kids and with their parents to say, learning is going to happen in my room, and I want everybody, not just the 28 kids in my classroom and the teacher and any aides that might be in there, anything, to be the only ones who are getting to see what's going on.
Awesome. Bryan, let's continue on. Let's talk more about kids broadcasting their voice. How are kids, I think we briefly talked about kids podcasting, but are there, other than podcasting, or maybe you could tell us about the podcasting, how are kids telling the stories of the classrooms and then broadcasting that out to the community?
Sure. So we, just like where we let teachers send us ideas and submit things for what they want to share on social media, we let the kids do it too. I haven't gotten to the point where Joe says like, hey, let's give over our social media pages to the student for a day. I love the idea. And I think it's kind of like in the hands of the right person, it would probably be really, really good. And an awesome learning opportunity probably for the kid who it may not have been the best idea to give. So haven't gotten to that yet, but our kids will, same thing. They'll walk in to the main office and share with us, hey, this is going on in our class, or we have a project presentation coming up. Can you come in and do a Facebook Live Friday, or take pictures and put us out there that this is going on in our classes? So it's not even being the impetus of, or the catalyst of sharing isn't necessarily even coming from the teachers. A lot of it is now being driven by the students. And our students are also being active commenters and participators in our social media pages. So it's funny, the other day we're hiring for a couple positions right now, and we posted it out on social media through Instagram and Facebook and Twitter that we were hiring. And a kid jumped on and said, hey, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to go spread the word. And I was like, I got on and I was like, thank you. That's great. If you know anybody, absolutely go and spread the word. And he came back and just wrote, by the way, I just want to let you know our school's awesome. And cool. Like unprompted, not needed. It talks to culture, but you have kids now interacting with school beyond 7:30 to 2:30. This was at 8:30 at night. Like, hey, I'm going to let everybody know. My first question was, why were you looking at the school Facebook page at 8:30 at night? And then I kind of think back, well, this is exactly what we wanted to have happen. We want those kids to go on and be able to see everything that's going on in their school, even if they're not a part of it as well. To be able to say, oh, I now know what's going on in Miss Eagle's biology class, even though I'm a 10th grade physics or 11th grade physics student. It's breaking down walls even within our own building to share learning beyond the kid's normal schedule.
Well, before Bryan jumps to the next question, I just want to say I checked out the Avon Grove Charter Facebook page, and I'm telling you, it looks like the message from somebody who's never been to your school looks like you guys have a lot of fun learning. Like, there's just a lot of great things all over the place with kids and teachers and community events, and your event schedule is very up to date. So, I mean, if you want to see a great Facebook page, people, just check out the Avon Grove Charter School Facebook page. And it's a real great model for how you can set up a nice Facebook page for a school. So I just wanted to throw that.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll shout out to our IT department. Myself, a couple other staff, and our IT department are the ones that really kind of manage it. And we've made it a priority. And not every school, I think, leverages social media as a high priority. But it's been something that we've said we need to do for communication and I don't want to say marketing, but just to get our message and what's going on out there to everybody.
Speaking of getting your message out, I know a lot of people talk about blogging, but George Couros talks about blogging a lot. He uses that as an online portfolio and really encourages staff and students to do that. Can you talk about how your students and staff are using blogs?
Sure. So this is a tough one, right? So you guys are doing your blog prompts right now, and I've probably dove in and have started and restarted my own one. I don't know, probably 5 times, and it's hard. That's a really hard thing to put your own writing out there for the world to see. But what we've started to try to do is identify that, especially with our staff, and then looking at our students. Kids now want a wider audience than just the kids in their classroom during period 2, right? Like if I'm a student in a class and I'm working on something, kids don't want that closed network loop of feedback, whether it's just between me and the teacher or me and the peer who might be sitting next to me for 180 days of school because I got an assigned seat. And we do a lot of, think, pair, share. They want a larger audience. So we've tried to really work with teachers on finding platforms where kids can, share their ideas and look for authentic feedback and look for a broader audience. And whether that's blogging, whether that's using Flipgrid, whether it's putting out YouTube videos, we've really tried to ingrain the use of technology from the sense of expanding our audience for student feedback, and those tech platforms have been helpful, but it's really been a journey, and we're by nowhere near where we need to be. We've done the same thing with our book studies, is trying to get staff to be open with their writing and their thoughts and their reflections. And we've done a lot of modeling. I've tried to put myself out there. I'm very critical of my own writing, which I think we probably all are, when right before you hit publish and you're like, I'm not sure about this one, or I wanted to reword it just a little bit differently. That's tough to put yourself out there and being vulnerable. It's tough to be vulnerable, and we need to do it as adults if we want kids to be able to do it too.
No, you're right. I will say that the first time you blog, we actually were working with a friend of ours for his first blog, and he actually had a legitimate anxiety reaction to clicking publish. It was, I think, Bryan, you had to run up and click publish, if I remember.
I did. I distracted him and just hit publish.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it's one of those. That's like one of those. I always tell kids and our staff, like, look at the potential of these mediums and not the potential pitfalls, because
Oh, I like that.
You're going to put yourself out there, and there's always going to be critics. There's always going to be critics. It's going to happen. But just if you are true to yourself and you have a positive message and you're able to develop a little bit of thick skin, then the potential of these platforms and being open to share really does expand the educational options that you have. It's tough, but it's worth it. And if you can get over that first hurdle of like hitting that first publish, it becomes easier over time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I agree. So we're going to move down to culture and relationships to wrap up the night. And thanks again for being with us. And folks, if you're still out there watching, if you want to jump in the YouTube and comment any questions you have for Bryan, you can do that. Or if you want to tweet us at #HackLead, we can get to some questions at the end if there are any. And if not, we'll just wrap it up with these next two segments. So the word social is an important part of social media. Do you find a good balance in cultivating community relationships using your social media versus the face-to-face experiences and the events?
So, I mean, we've tried to really look at blending the two worlds of if it can be done face-to-face, it can probably also be replicated virtually. And if it can be done virtually, in some instances, does it need to be face-to-face too? So I know we had talked about this a little bit more. Doing something like this for your parents is an amazing opportunity. I've seen more participation from our parents and our community members in some of the webinars that I'll run, which I recreate. So anytime we do a face-to-face event, like in our auditorium or something, and it's going to be like an information session. So like high school course selection is always a good one. So high school course selection time comes around, and it's sometimes hard for parents to get out. People are busy. It's a really important topic that needs to be covered and that you need to share that information, but it's hard. So we will always try to recreate what we do in person, face-to-face in settings like this. So I'll run a webinar session, or I'll do a YouTube live, or I'll record something where I make myself available online for parent questions. And the feedback that I've gotten from that, from a school operation standpoint, has been phenomenal. Just the thanks from parents of, I appreciate that you're recognizing that we're busy as parents, but we still want to be involved in our kids' education. And then to be able to say, you're going to run this at 8 o'clock at night where I can put my kids to bed and do dinner and do the important things that are family driven, but then still be involved in my kids' education has been really powerful. And it's not that they don't want to participate. It's just finding another medium and marrying that face-to-face and virtual world.
Right.
Will you delegate those out to the experts in the fields, or do you find yourself right now having to do all that because of your role?
Most of the time, I'll do it, and it's kind of been, I think, a little bit of time and comfortability, because you're still working even with people, to be able to say, I'm okay looking at myself on the webcam, right? That's even sometimes difficult for people to get over that first, like, is this really what I look like online, and everybody's seeing me this way? So most of the time I'll do them, and it's they're quick hits, and you're able to run them quickly, and I don't mind doing it. It's been something where I've been able to be involved with parents in a positive way, and if some of my assistant principals want to do that, or director of special ed, they'll jump on and help. But usually I'm involved, and it's because I want to, because it's a way for me to continue to connect with our parents.
Go ahead, Bryan.
Sorry, I was so into his answer. I got a little off track here. So, Bryan, in closing, because we brought you on because you're an expert.
No,
what advice?
I wouldn't say that.
Just want to put you on the spot here at the end. What advice would you give to someone who wants to improve telling their story, and most importantly, their students' storytelling through social media, but has apprehension, like we've talked about? Just a couple pieces of advice that you have.
Sure. I kind of already said it. I'll say it again. I'd focus on the potential and not the potential pitfalls. There is a lot of opportunity. and out there in terms of social media, whether it's for your own professional learning or it's for sharing and crafting the message of your school. You know, and it's true what Joe says, if we don't control that message, somebody else will. And the story that's being told in your community at the diner on a Sunday morning, you can either be a part of trying to cultivate and create that message, or you're going to end up having to be reactive to it on Monday morning. But I would say stay positive, focus on the potential, find a buddy. If you can find a buddy that has been involved and can guide you a little bit, that's sometimes we found that's sometimes extremely helpful, because some of it's just it's apprehension of the new tool, or it's maybe not being on board with the culture shift. I try to remove social media from the conversations because I think that just the term social media has had this like negative connotation, especially in education, because you have teachers watching kids on their phones a lot and going, oh, those kids are just on social media, right? And then you're asking the teachers to try to utilize the same and similar platforms for their like professional learning or to share what's going on in their classroom. So it's kind of like catch-22. You know, I don't want the kids on it, but then we're trying to tell them to be on it. So I would say find a buddy who's kind of leveraged it, and yeah, be positive. Social media needs to be positive. Educators get a tough rap as it is, so that if you're able to be online and be in social media and be in your community circles and share positive messages of what's happening in schools, that can change the narrative of education in our circles.
Well, Bryan, thanks. We actually have a question from Twitter, so I'm going to throw it out there. I actually asked, it came from Altoona, the Altoona Physical Education Department. Asked all three of us so we can each kind of take turns. Bryan, you're the guest tonight, so I'll throw it to you first, and then the other Bryan, and then I'll answer as well. Do we use Snapchat in any of our school communications?
So we tried. We have a couple teachers who are using Snapchat for book snaps. So they're using it more from an educational ed tech tool in their English classes than something that we have utilized kind of like school wide or as one of our social media platforms. We've started to look at it, but I think that's one that we've been a little worried about. And really, I think that's where you're seeing that, you know, our parents are on Facebook. Most of our kids are on Twitter and Instagram, and we have found that those mediums have been enough for us to try to manage and get our message out there. I don't know if you need to be on everything, as long as you're identifying where your kids, where your parents, or where your community members are at. And it hasn't really been something that we've needed to bring into our arsenal yet.
Mm-hmm. Bryan, are you using Snapchat at all in for professional learning or to tell stories, or know of anyone in the school district that is?
I don't right now. I'm actually focused primarily on Twitter, but that's for professional learning. In my role, I don't communicate that much with my community, which I probably should. But we're all learning and growing. I know one of our teachers uses Instagram to get his class's message out. But again, I got the app because I wanted to participate, and then it just became one more thing. So I think it's really important to probably focus on the ones that are the most effective. But if it works for the Altoona folks, because that's what all their students and community are using, then I would say, do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can share one story. I did it with one unit I was teaching last year, and the kids were like, they're always bugging me, Mr. Bedard, are you on Snapchat? I'm like, I am, but I don't get it, so I'm not using it that much. An occasional to monitor my own children kind of thing. And they said, well, you should get on it. So I created an account for my phys ed class for that unit, and I actually logged in as that for that class and gave it to the kids and let them post the stories. And it was actually pretty positive, getting some good community feedback, because I made a few ground rules like, look, we're not doing this to make fun of anybody. We're not putting all kinds of strange memes together out of it. Let's just tell the story. And and everything's positive. And the minute that I see anything but, I'm shutting it down. And honestly, I had really good feedback from it. I'm probably a little too apprehensive to give that much control up to the kids, or that much access to doing something on Snapchat that I don't fully understand every aspect of it. So that's my apprehension. And like Bryan mentioned earlier, we're all growing and we all probably could get better at that. But, that's an opportunity at best that you could kind of use, because that's how the kids talk to each other. I mean, they don't text, they don't call, hey, what's your Snapchat? And that's how they communicate. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we really appreciate it. You were perfect for this episode because of all the great things that I've seen you doing on Twitter, and getting to check out your school's Facebook page tonight, blew me away even more. So, thank you for being part of this tonight, and we're so honored that you were able to do this for us tonight and share this with our listeners.
Yep. And if anybody wants to reach out, you can reach me at Mr. Brutto on Twitter, or don't hesitate to shoot me an email. It's bbruto@agcharter.org. Inbox is always welcome.
Well, thanks so much, Bryan. And on behalf of my host tonight, Bryan Robinson, and Jessica couldn't be with us tonight. Thanks for being with us. Next week we will be on with Lori Stoller, and we will be talking with her, continuing this book study. Just 2 more episodes left in this season, and we're so thankful that you're with us. And we'll send out blog topics here very soon, and can't wait for you to share. Hack Lead Twitter chat Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. First question goes out, and it'll be 6 questions, 45 minutes, and hopefully we'll gain some more based off of this episode tonight with Bryan. So thanks a lot, everyone. Good night.